Well, welcome. We're doing a little outreach across some communities for this retail expansion. Maybe there's some questions. Maybe you're intrigued by what we're about to embark on in Central and Eastern Oregon. I'll do a brief introduction here so you know who we are. My name is Brian Fleming. I'm the Director of Distilled Spirits. I have Brian Aker. Brian is a district manager out of the Portland market and all the way to the coast. Graham Alderson is our local district manager, so he oversees basically about 60,000 square miles of Oregon. He's based out of Pendleton, but he does cover this marketplace in terms of a district manager. Christy at the back is our public policy spokesperson for the alcohol programs. And then should you continue down this path, I think you should know Laura Shepard. She's our Bend regional manager. So anybody here locally, that's where we would do some of the licensing for other business, meaning beer or wine or other things that you may need that are alcohol related. So with that, I think I'll just jump right into the presentation and just kind of take you through what we're doing here today and then what you may want to know. So the open recruitment is kind of a market-driven recruitment for appointing up to 10 agents. We don't know if it's 6. We don't know if it's 11. It'll all be evaluated based on the quality of proposals, impact on liquor agents that are existing in the marketplace. And this is really from Central Oregon all the way to the northeast corner. So Idaho border, Washington border. We're actually headed off to Pendleton tomorrow to meet with local folks as well. The objective, improve customer convenience, adding retail liquor locations with a measured but consistent approach to growth. Population in Oregon continues to grow. We're in the top in the country in terms of growth of population. I think Bend experienced terrible times, 08, 09, 10, a lot of people leaving and or selling their homes. But you guys are in kind of a boom now of people coming to Central Oregon. Top line some numbers for you. This is around the density of what we were. 30 years ago, we had 1 liquor store on average per 12,000 Oregonians. Today, excuse me, we have 1 for every 16,000 Oregonians statewide. This 14-county area, mostly because there's so much rural areas, 1 per 8,400. But if you look to some of the metro markets here, it could be somewhere in the neighborhood 1 to 21,000. So still above the state or higher than the statewide average at 1 to 16. Excuse me, 16,000. In this 14-county area, 427,000 or so people. And some growth estimates, about 25,000 people estimated, or 30,000 over the next 5 years. And this is just data you can see below. It's PSU population research that we're using here. Goals. Expand the footprint of liquor stores across Oregon. Customer convenience is a big part of why we're doing this. Access to spirits. Decreased distances, long travel times, potentially not necessarily in Bend, but or in Bend could be, because you're getting pretty gridlocked. I remember the old 97 when I used to drive through here on the way south, and you know, going through Highway 97 on a Friday night took you about an hour and a half. It was pretty much gridlocked back in the day. The average within these counties about 16 miles on average, but it changes when you get into the densely populated metro markets. Maximize travel and tourism. I think folks that live here in Bend or around this area, Redmond, Eagle Crest, wherever it is, I mean, we're reliant on travel and tourism dollars. I mean, you got beautiful rivers to raft, great mountains to ski. I just vacationed here a couple weeks ago up in the mountains, and you know, it's just a great place for travel and tourism, biking, paddle boarding, you name it. You guys have a lot of it. 12 months a year. So nationally, distilled spirits trends are growing, and you think about the share of spirits, beer, wine, spirits growth continues to grow. Beer, you know, about a bit stagnant. Wine had hits boom, you know, 10, 20 years ago. We're quite proud of our Pinot Noir, I believe, here, right? But nationally, spirits trends are growing, somewhere in the neighborhood of 35, 36% share of the dollars nationwide. I think we're about 33, 34, but ours continues to grow. Part of it, I know we talk about the millennials a lot, but millennials, female drinkers, there's some spirits today that non-traditional, whether it's cinnamon or grape or, you know, all these different cocktails. And as we drove in this afternoon, you drive down Bond Street or Wall here in Bend and you look and it's, you know, noon, 1 o'clock and it's bustling with business. And then you come here Friday nights and there's people all over the place. That cocktail culture, mixology, fine dining, you know, it's really rebounded from where we were 6 and 8 years ago. In the rural communities, there's some areas where spirits aren't carried, you know, for 60 miles in between one little stop to the next little stop. That could be something that be entertained. You know, we want to maintain a moderate growth of stores. This is the single largest expansion since Prohibition, but we're not adding 300 stores. So we're not adding them on every street corner. We're going to be mindful of existing liquor agents and the impact on their revenue because they're still running Oregon small businesses. So moderate. To date, since we started, I think there's 19 we've approved. And really what we did is accelerate in the first year. Portland Metro was 13 of those. And there's a significant population, obviously, in Portland. So it's a moderate growth. It's not to add 200 stores overnight. This is just kind of a brief overview of where we've been, where we are now, and what we're proposing. It could change based on how we go to market with this. Phase 3 is really that northeast corner, central and northeast corner. Portland's been done, like I just mentioned. We added 13. We have about 7 or 8 open already. We just completed, I think it was January, February, Phase 2. Lane, Benton, Lynn was a tri-county area of Eugene, all the way out to the coast. We approved 6 locations through that expansion. And then Phase 3, we're right here now in Central Oregon, and this will go through July 31st. The gentleman here with me will cover some of the timelines. And then we potentially go to the south, Phase 4, maybe north, the northwest corner, and or we probably will go back to the Portland market because there's still, we missed probably some opportunities of places where liquor stores could have been. And we're not just doing this, you know, we still have a public safety component to what we do. You know, we're very mindful of spirits, youth, overconsumption of alcohol, but there's some areas of growth. Western Washington County, I mean, there's 8,000 homes going in one area. In it, you know, it's huge growth. You know, urban growth boundaries have moved in the Portland market, so. We'll just continue going here. It's really just a simple little map. This is where we're at. A lot of this, by the way, I should mention that a lot of the materials, if we cover it here today and you're missing something, we're going to stay after, answer some questions if you have some. I know some of you have a secret business plan, doesn't want to maybe be shared in the group. We'll be here this afternoon to answer questions. But we have a lot of materials in the back, and then the gentleman will also take you through our web content. Everything's there. And if you have a computer, you can go through tons and tons of information additionally. Rules, statutes, things you may be looking at. So, consumer trends, I mentioned a little bit about spirits nationally. Today's consumer is a little more sophisticated. We're not just drinking dad's liquor, what he used to drink, or you know, the beer they used to drink, or you know, different wines they used to drink. They're looking for experiences. All of us, I think. You guys have a brewery scene here that's robust. I mean, you got some killer breweries in this town. People drive to go, these experiences, seeing a brewery, getting food, family, and that's kind of the experience that, you know, has helped spirits as well. Mixology culture, you have it in downtown Bend, you ought to see Portland. I mean, they're putting what used to be two components of a cocktail, soda and, you know, gin or whatever it was, they're putting 5, 6, 7 components in a cocktail. Dash of this, drip of this, drop of that. So there is a huge mixology culture. The other thing, and you know, we're quite proud of, you know, Bend Market. I mean, if you go to the stores here in Bend, you have a pretty nice marketplace of stores, whether it's West Bend. We have a new liquor agent in the south side of Bend. East Bend Liquor obviously has a lot of spirits and beer and wine there. Out to Redmond added a new store several years ago. And all these stores it's kind of part of the premier part of the fleet. Beautiful stores in the Bend market. I think there's a higher expectation of convenience. Our spirit selection, one thing we're proud of is we have 2,200 regularly stocked items. And we talked about the consumer desire for multiple choices. We have a lot of choices. And then when it comes to our special order program, well over 2,000 special order items available that we procure nationally, but we've procured throughout the world. You know, I can recall a time when I delivered a $27,000 bottle of scotch, one bottle, one customer sold in Oregon. So we're capable of that kind of scale. So I'm going to let these gentlemen take you through the differences of the processes and why it's different than what we typically do when we site new liquor stores.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Currently, if you want to be appointed to run a liquor store, you have to wait for a resignation to occur. And that can be far and few between, and might not be the best location where the store was initially set up to be in. As the community has grown, maybe you have a different idea where the store should be. In this process, and also current liquor agents can only have 2 stores. In this process, applicants may apply for multiple locations. For instance, phase 1, we had the Walmart stores that applied for 4 locations. And each will be considered separately based on their business plan and what the commissioners feel is the right place to site the store. Within that, the existing liquor store agents, as I said, can apply for more than 2 stores in this process. So if you already own 2 stores and you're a current liquor agent, you can apply for additional stores during the open recruitment period. Minor control plans, responsible selling is one of our priorities. So we're mindful of your business plan, and it needs to be included with your business proposal if you do not have a separate entrance for the store. Along with that is addressing how you're going to secure the state's inventory. And we're open to a variety of different business models where customers can purchase spirits. We're looking for boutique stores, a traditional standalone liquor store that's an exclusive, and inside other businesses. Out here in these outer markets, you might have a hardware store, and we'll go through a few of those. The existing retail liquor models that we have, I think we're currently at 255 stores, and we have the authority to operate 269 right now. There's 2 types. There's the standalone traditional store in its own building where you sell distilled spirits and related items, or you may sell, along with those, beer and wine. And we have the other type, which is located within another business, where you have a separate entrance or no separate entrance. And some of those examples might be a store within a store, so it's inside a grocery store, but there's an entrance into the liquor area itself. Or you might have a hardware store where it's behind the counter or down an aisle, for instance. Please note at the bottom, if you do plan to have beer and wine sales, you'll need to apply for a separate O license with OLCC's licensing department. And as well as, it's not on the slide, but one of the prohibitions to being a liquor agent is that you cannot have an ownership in an FCOM, full on-premise bar, or have a limited license where you sell beer or wine by the glass. The next slide is an example of a
So basically, if you're a bar owner and want to open and operate a liquor store, you're selling spirits, you won't be able to. You can release all your ownership and no longer operate, but you're going to be prohibited until you do so. We want to be clear up front. Because have other people, well, we should change the rule or law, and there's certain reasons why some laws are put in place. You know, and obviously owning a liquor store and a bar, you want to make sure it's.
And we did have one of those come up in phase 1, where he applied, went through the process, and then changed his mind because he felt like he didn't want to give up that additional privilege with the L license, and so he retracted his proposal.
Quick question over there.
So would that include a growler station?
No, because that'd be considered an O license for beer.
Even though we can sell beer by the glass?
Oh,
No, that's an L license.
That's an L
which
license.
means your consumption on premise.
Right.
Yeah, you would be restricted from doing so.
Well, excuse me, let me clarify that. There is an exception in the rule if you're in a small market area where you can be a contract agent with distilled spirits and also be an L licensee. In other words, if you have liquor in a cafe where you serve beer and wine, that's acceptable if you're in a market where essentially there is no other place in that market to merchandise liquor.
Real narrow exception.
Very narrow exception.
Very
It does
narrow.
exist. It has existed in my tenure with the commission.
you know, to give you an idea with these, through the open recruitment, in phase 1, we had about 48 applicants or business plans submitted. 13 were moved forward by the board. So they're pretty mindful and careful on where they're going to site these stores, and it needs to make sense for the community that they're going to go into.
We put some more details of the board, but should you be selected, so you're going to present to our board of commissioners. And it's not us to approve you for going in front of the board. The board actually selects the store, the operator, for expansion, even in our traditional processes. You present before a board of commissioners. They're real people, they're regular, everydays, just like us, but they are doing a job for the state of Oregon, appointing liquor stores. So.
All right, thank you, Brian. Once again, my name is Graham Alderson. I'm the district manager who covers central and eastern Oregon, basically a little geographic area of about 68,000 square miles. Excuse me, and public speaking is not my strong suit, so if my voice pitches on me to the point where I was 12 years old, you'll understand why.
I made him do it.
What's that?
I made him do it.
He made me do it. That's exactly right. So Brian Aker introduced you to what we look at in the standalone retail model, which is what most of you are probably familiar with. At one point until up to a point about 5 years ago, all four existing stores in Bend, for example, are what we call a standalone exclusive model. They basically sold only distilled spirits and a selection of authorized related items. 2 out of those 4 stores are now conversion stores and have added beer and wine. The West Side store and the East Side store most recently. And the South store is in the process of converting and will be carrying beer and wine very soon, just within a matter of weeks, as a matter of fact. So the 2 models, though, that Brian was referring to as far as entrances, we have a couple of examples up here that are near to the neighborhood for you guys. One of them is Sun River Country Store in the upper right, and that is a store that doesn't necessarily, a proposal that doesn't necessarily require a business plan, because we have criteria in place as far as restricted access and that kind of thing for a model like Sun River Country Store. The entrance to the liquor area is within the grocery store, so it does not require a control plan if you're submitting a proposal that parallels that model. On the other hand, the Gallimaufry out in Sisters, does anybody know what Gallimaufry means? Gallimaufry is a Scottish word for absurd medley of things. it's a great gift store. If you're ever out there, you should pay them a visit. They also have a medley of things that include liquor, beer, and wine. The Gallimaufry, the liquor, there's one entrance to the store, the entrance that you see on the corner there. And therefore, if you're proposing a model like that where you have an existing business and you want to add a liquor selection to it, you're going to have to put together a control plan that tells us what you intend to do to prevent access to minors and so on. Wow, did it. So my district in rural eastern Oregon I have 54 stores in a wide spread area. Of those, about 34 or 35 are what we call a non-exclusive model. And this slide basically is here to give you an idea of the different possibilities if you have an existing business or intend to open an existing business, because we have, in the upper left is liquor in Lakeview, Oregon. That's in a convenience store. Upper right is Union. That's one of my stores. There's hardware and espresso along with liquor. Lower left in Sheridan, liquor in a pharmacy. I have a few of those out here in my district as well. And then a lot of you probably recognize Ken Sporting Goods in Crescent, where we have liquor, pistols, and centerfire rifles, all in the same under the same roof.
I might mention that it's temporarily located in Gilchrist, about a quarter mile.
Probably all.
Semi-truck.
I know.
Yeah, many of you are probably aware of that. It had a little collision with an 18-wheeler, and unfortunately, the building lost the battle. So
we didn't lose a single bottle of liquor at that.
Not a drop. Somebody was, the liquor guys were looking after us on that scale. So I'm going to turn it back to Brian Aker.
So one of the reasons we're reaching out to you folks is, we're looking for your creativity. You know your markets. In the past, OLCC, I think it's cited where a location needed to be. We're reaching out to the business community to bring innovative plans to us, and you have a better idea maybe of what you think that the community needs are. We're looking for entrepreneurs that are existing business owners, especially out here where you might have a non-exclusive proposal where you can just plug it into your existing business. It'd be an easy additional revenue stream for you. We're looking for all types of retail models. Phase 2 we just completed. We have boutique type stores, Beau's Wine Shop in downtown Eugene. We have 4,000 plus SKUs available out of the warehouse or through special order, and I think he's carrying about 360. So it is a boutique small selection that he's curated there. And we also in phase 1 had an example of Corbett Country Market out in the Gorge, a small little gas station convenience store. It's historical. It's been in some of the movies have been filmed there. And it's a unique little shop with a barbecue going in the back, and they have a small selection behind the counter there.
If you remember through the winter months, we had a tough winter, didn't we? Especially here, certainly in Portland, 10 inches of snow. Corbett Country Market, literally with the ice in the gorge that you always hear about. I mean, people are walking down to get to the market, not necessarily for liquor, but provisions, right? Milk, they have some eggs. The owner was running around a Subaru with studded tires. I mean, he can pretty much go everywhere. We see a lot in this market, but really there's communities like that maybe they have 1,000 people within a 10-mile radius that day they don't want to always go all the way into Troutdale or Portland. That's the kind of the convenience model that some of these small stores provide.
And this also plays into widening the range of choices for the consumer within your community. Currently, right now, you may only be able to purchase beer and wine or drive 40, 50 miles to get distilled spirits. This will give the consumer and the public more of a choice.
Thank you, Brian. So I have an experience that a half inch of snow in Portland is challenging, so 10 inches you can imagine. And I can get away with saying that because I live in the other direction where we get a lot of snow. So I'm sure one of the questions in the forefront of your mind is, how do we get to a liquor store? Selection criteria for retail expansion is a little different than it is for, oh, you want me to change the slide?
Yeah.
Okay. Selection, here we go again. Selection criteria for retail expansion is a little bit different than it is for a replacement in an existing vacancy. For one thing, we require with your application, we require a business plan. And I'm not going to outline what goes in or the minimum requirements for that business plan, because if you picked up an FAQ from the back table back here, the pages 1 and 2, it rolls over from page 1 to page 2. It gives you bullet by bullet what we expect to see in your business plan at minimum. The more the better. The more you want to tell us, the better. But at minimum, that's what we want to see in your business proposal. The rest of these items are basically in an Oregon administrative rule as far as the requirements to qualify for a liquor agent, all but one. You have to prove when you give us your business proposal and you give us a statement of expenditures, what it's going to cost you to open your store or to put liquor in your store, you're going to have to prove to us that you've got the financing to do that. We require a statement of funding and supporting documentation. In other words, the first page of your bank statement with, of course, the account number redacted. We don't want to know any more than that. We generally look very closely at retail experience or business management experience. Either one or both of those things are always a leg up as far as selection goes. They're not necessarily a what's the term I'm looking for? They're not necessarily going to disqualify anybody, but the more retail background or business management background you have, the better.
So let me go back a step. So in the investment and financing, it's important to us that, one, we're putting together first-class liquor stores. Some are smaller, right? You're bolting them onto a business. And the financing is, do you have the ability to open and operate a liquor store? You'll receive compensation as you grow your sales from us, but we need to know that the store's up and operational. You got to have a point-of-sale machine, because we track every single bottle sale across the state of Oregon, populates liquor search, so consumers can find those choices. The other thing that's not mentioned is here is we do, because we're in the state of Oregon, run a criminal background check. We want to make sure there's no money laundering, fraud. It's not happened since I've been there, that we've excluded people, and not that anybody here, but we want people to understand that it's extremely important to understand this is the state's asset, and we treat that very, very seriously, and we account for every single dollar. So
yeah, that is a very important point, because we are answering to the legislature, and basically in that vein we're answering to the taxpayers. So knowledge of the alcohol industry, this is not something that's necessarily in rule, but probably is in someone's favor, whether it is your own personal experience with distilled spirits, or perhaps somebody who owns or has owned a full-on premise license, full-on licensed premises, such as a bar or restaurant or whatever the case might be. That's something that we'll look at. Again, it's not anything necessarily that's going to disqualify anybody. Location, can't emphasize this enough. Our goal here with retail expansion is accessibility and convenience for the consumer. It's not to pile liquor stores on top of one another all over the state. We have no intention of doing that. We have a loyalty to our agents as they have to us, and we don't intend to do anything that's going to severely or overtly impact existing business. And then the other thing that we're looking for in the criteria is estimated sales and revenue. What your projections are for a store, the location that you've picked, the model that you've picked, and so forth. What do you think it's going to do? I have to do this right. Thank you. Okay. Good thing I'm left-handed. So the next slide has to do with the timeline. A lot of this is already out there. Information meetings on June 14th and the 15th tomorrow in Pendleton. The recruitment period, and I can't emphasize this enough, the recruitment period expires on July 31st. We have to have your business plan and your application by then. They won't be considered after that. We will spend the month of August basically reviewing the applications, and that's a fairly thorough process. Brian will be looking at them. Brian will be looking at them. Likely the other two district managers, or chances are the other two district managers based in Portland will be looking at them. I, of course, will be looking at them because I'm the guy that you're going to work with in the long run.
So in the Portland Metro expansion, literally, it was that 48, I think it was
48 proposals.
48
for phase
proposals.
one. Yeah.
And we combed through every piece because there's different pieces. Everybody, not everybody, we didn't send out a standardized business plan and fill out the blanks. So everybody had their different way of doing it, right? So we combed through every piece of the information.
Well, I'll add to that too. Also, you know, we are a resource. If you have questions during that time frame, to meet with us or to talk to us about ideas that you have, and you know, we can offer up suggestions or share information of what has been a best practice in the past. So, you know, make sure you reach out to us.
Absolutely. And again, I want to reiterate that we have business cards back there. Feel free to take any of the cards, certainly mine. I will mention that my cell phone number is on that business card, and that's the best way to reach me because I spend as little time as I can in my office. Feel free to call me on my cell phone with questions. Either of these gentlemen, we've got, you know, we're willing to listen to anything. If we think it's an absolutely crazy idea, we may just say, yes, go with it. If we think it's a prohibitive idea, we're either going to coach you or we're going to tell you, no, you won't be considered with that kind of model. So the month of September, we will be conducting interviews. It's kind of TBD. We are, generally speaking, we conduct interviews in our headquarters in Milwaukee, but we're considering, depending on the group of applicants that we will be interviewing, we may do the interviews here in Bend.
So let me just point out some of the things we do are by statute or rule, Oregon by statute or rule, and some of the conditions of becoming a liquor store is you must conduct in-person interviews and do go through a host of different questions. Usually about 30 minutes in this, and really a little bit too is sometimes that answers some of your questions. And we're entertaining potentially, depending upon how many we receive, coming to the marketplace rather than you traveling to Portland. Hopefully make it a little easier. If we do it here, we'll probably have to go to Pendleton too. If that's what we need to do, we're here to help.
Okay. The commission selection. So the ultimate decisions on these things will be made by the OLCC Board of Commissioners. That is generally a 5-member board. At the time that this comes around in October or November, we're not quite sure how many members will be on the board. We've had some members leave.
Possibly 7 with the new marijuana thing we manage.
Yeah, there's a lot of flux going on right now with the board. So October or November will be the period. If you do make it to that stage, you will be asked to do about a 5-minute presentation to the board, essentially doing what you're going to do with us in interview, which is outlining your business proposal, and then by statute, the commissioners then will, after they've heard all the proposals, will then adjourn to deliberate selections and then come back out in the public forum that day and announce the appointments. The final approval is 14 days after posting. And basically what that means is that whenever we set a new liquor store, whenever we open a new location, we have to post it for the public for a period of 14 days to glean public comment, either good or bad. Nearly always good. Sometimes we get some negative comments from people as they don't want it in the neighborhood or whatever the case might be. But if there is, let's go on the upside, the positive side, if there's no public comment, then we move forward with the process. If there's public comment to the extent that it is a negative, extremely negative comment, then we likely will have to go back to the board for approval of that location based on public comment. Significant public opposition. This is the best resource for you. Many of you, how many, show of hands, how many have already been here? Yeah, this is absolutely the best resource that's out there. This gives you...
Second is, how many of you currently signed up for Gov Delivery? Anybody Gov Delivery? A super important resource. I mean, because you can find out about other things besides just liquor stores if you're concerned about licenses. So at the end, Christy has the information. Gov Delivery, if you want to keep in the know what's going on at the OLCC, sign up. You get automatic email alerts. If you don't like what you got, delete it. But it is an important thing if you want to follow us.
So it will come up again, but you can notice that the highlighted line item on our menu page for more information, that is where you can sign up for Gov Delivery. It's very, very simple, and you can choose the selection, the criteria that you would prefer in terms of getting notifications, whether it's about legislative items, whether it's about retail expansion, whether it's about just about any item that you can think of. It's available to you. So,
existing operators resign, retire, and we have a vacancy in this market. Oh, there's a new store available. Somebody's resigning, retiring. You know, and you're interested in, you know, existing business when somebody leaves. That's how you start that process, is find out about vacancies.
okay, so this is again the example of the web page, and we'll beat this horse one more time. Sign up for email alerts. That's Gov Delivery, where it says for more information. And then, do I hear tap this again?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. This is fun stuff. So toward the bottom of the middle of the page, we're talking about preview of retail liquor locations. These basically are those items that you see under that heading: advertisement, information sheet, retail sales agent selection, procedure and criteria, and FAQs. Those are essentially supported in some of the documentation. They're certainly supported on here. There are examples of them. We're going to hit them with the slides here in just a minute, but I still have more. I have to keep going. So this is our advertisement. Many of you perhaps have seen this. This is not only online, but I believe we put it in the bin bulletin.
I'm sorry.
Did we put the advertisement in the bin bulletin, this ad?
I think she did.
Yeah, it was in the bin bulletin, it was in the East Oregonian, it was on Oregon Live and so forth, but essentially it's the same information that you're already familiar with, some of what we covered, the area for retail expansion, the selection criteria, agents, or the evaluation criteria, and so forth. And once again, a detailed business plan will be required as part of the application process. Can't hammer that too much. The information sheet, another one of our handouts there in the back. The information sheet as applies to retail expansion is kind of generic. An information sheet, when we're filling a vacancy in an existing store, tells you exactly where the store is, whether, you know, more or less tells you whether it needs to stay there or be relocated, tells you what the buy-in costs are for that particular thing. None of that is in here because this is a market-driven approach. We're asking you to come to us with that information.
Go ahead.
Retail sales agent selection procedure and criteria. The selection procedure we've kind of covered. This is our, I do have to tell you, this is our older rendition. So it says when the commission fills a retail sales agent vacancy, well, we're hoping to fill 10 vacancies. We just don't know what those vacancies are at this moment. But that's, we seek applications from the public. Agency, the vacancy is advertised. There's an application deadline. Appointed retail sales agent must submit a liquor store improvement or business plan for approval. Enter into a retail sales agent agreement. Purchase fixtures and equipment and begin operation on a specified date. Excuse me. I want to point out one thing that we may not have covered, and I'm not sure that any of you are aware of, is that merchandising and marketing liquor in the state of Oregon is a contract with the state, as opposed to Kelly has a license to serve distilled spirits. This is a contract to sell the state's inventory and be paid a commission to do that. So it's not a license, just so that you have that clarification. It is a contract.
The sample contracts also available online. You'll definitely want to know what you're getting into.
Back to Brian.
All right, so part of that webpage, one of the most critical pieces is, of course, what he just covered, the overview. The next piece we'll talk about are the application packets. And within those, there's an individual application that you can request. There's one for an LLC and one for a corporation. How you apply is up to you and what your experts or people you consult with decide is best for your business that you want to run. An individual application is a single person applying for the retail sales agent agreement. An individual application is required with the detailed business plan. The LLC application is if you're an LLC, and it is also required to have a detailed business plan, but in addition to that, you're going to have an individual history packet from a managing member. And if you have a premises manager that's going to be operating the store on a day-to-day basis, we want an individual history packet on them as well, because that's the person that's going to be interacting with the state's revenue and liquor inventory most often. Same with the corporation. A corporation that is applying can be an out-of-state entity, and we would need an individual history packet from a regional district or area manager that oversees the territory, as well as the premises manager, and an individual history packet also on the one of the corporate members as well. I believe that in the instruction sheet for the corporation, it does say that somebody that is a vice president or CEO has to fill out the information.
It's all out there. We can help you through there. You're going to choose which way to apply, individual, LLC, or corporations. We can help you with the do's, don'ts, what's, nots as we move through it.
And I'll tell you just initially on the differences, as this has been a bit confusing in the past, is if you're an individual that's applying to be an agent, you have access to a couple things. One is a deferred compensation program that we have, as well as access to getting insurance through a state program where you're paying all the costs on it, but you at least have access to it, and it's set up for an individual only. So a corporation or LLC is not eligible for those programs.
So that's an insurance pool that basically lumps you with all of the state employees, so it's a pool of some 30,000 people. One other thing on the applications, and that is that if you intend to apply as an LLC or a corporation and you have not already established that, you need to do that probably sooner rather than later, because your application requires you to give us a Secretary of State's registration number for your... Validate. Yeah, we do validate that. We have to have your registration number for the LLC or the corporation.
And please make sure it's complete.
Yeah. Okay.
You're on the additional information.
I'm on the addition. I'm just looking the arrows, that's all.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the additional information, basically, are going to give you samples of some information. The retail sales agent agreement, which we refer to in short as the contract or the agreement. It's about a 7 or 8 page document. It's chock full of legalese, but it is vetted by the Department of Justice as a state contract, and so it is we call it the agreement or the contract. There's a sample of it there. If you're really looking for something interesting to do, you can read all 8 or 9 pages of it. It's pretty good stuff.
I would definitely read it, but most of it's pretty straightforward. As we go through this presentation, remember, we're a state asset. We take it very seriously, and so we have an avenue to the state asset in the event of shortages, which sometimes happens.
So it does, and I don't mean to humor it too much, but it is definitely a good solid contract. It tells you your obligations to us, it tells you our obligations to you, and so forth, if you do ink the bottom line on that contract. Very important to read it. So you're in this for the money, right? We hope. The compensation schedule, we basically have 2 different classes of compensation based on the type of store. So what we're seeing here is the exclusive agent compensation is an exclusive store. It's a standalone store that I alluded to earlier, such as The Bend South store still exists that way. The Bend North store at Wagner Mall still exists that way. East and West are conversion stores, but they fall under the exclusive classification. And those are the conversion stores, obviously, again, are stores that are added beer and wine. Traditional exclusive stores are stores that only sell liquor in a select list of authorized related items. So exclusive stores are set into 6 different classes. You can see the base compensation over on the right for each of those different classes. I can tell you the majority of our exclusive stores are Class 6.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we have one or two Class 1s. Most of the majority are in Class 6, so in other words, they're doing greater than 1.650 million a year on an annual basis. We have some in the Class 5, and this is just a sliding scale based on your volume that you're doing annually. And if you go up, let's say you start at a Class 5 store and you go greater than, you actually get a slight raise because we actually adjust annually for your annual volume to go up or down. You can go down, but generally speaking, all of them are in the Class 6 stores today in terms of base comp.
Okay, so $2,700 a month is not enough to live on. Everybody agree? On top of the base compensation, we have 2 variable commission rates, or sales commission rates. 8.15% for consumer sales, and that's counter sales inside the store. That's the over-the-counter sales. And 6.36% for licensee sales, sales to bars, restaurants, taverns, etc. Just a quick explanation, the reason that the licensee compensation formula or percentage is slightly less is because we offer licensees a discount off of the retail price of liquor, so we pay a lower commission for that. Non-exclusive compensation, if that's the model that you choose to operate on, all stores, regardless of volume, are 14.25% of the first 10,000 in monthly sales, plus the 2 variable rates. Notice up there under variable commission, variable sales commission, it says currently. Those rates are 815 and 636. That's because the Legislative Fiscal Office does it's a biannual or semi-annual review of the amount of compensation that we're paying out, because it is a budget item based on projected sales volume. So it's adjusted up and down periodically. Usually it's reviewed about every 6 months. It's not necessarily changed that often, but it is subject to review and slight adjustment.
Our statewide rate is 8.93 max limitation that we can expend based on sales. We have exceeded that, and not the percentage, but the dollars because of the growth. And so what we do is we have to prepare a package, go to legislature, the E-Board, and get authority for additional expenditure to still pay out at the 8.93%.
E-Board is emergency board, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so we put this chart up here to give you an idea of what you're looking at in terms of some of the compensations. Again, 2 different schedules, either based on an exclusive store comp or non-exclusive store compensation. And does this thing pop out of here? Okay, never mind. I won't go that far. But you can see in the base allowance, you can see the differences in exclusive in that second column in from the left. Base allowance for the different classes of exclusive. Once you get to the $1,650,000 or greater, $2,700 a month times 12 is the $32,400 that you see there. And then over to the right, it goes into the calculations for variable sales commissions based on those current percentages. So if, for example, 90% of your business is in counter sales and you're a Class 6 store doing $2.5 million, salary range or your compensation range is going to be somewhere between $199,000 and $239,000 a year. Again, the same formula, same projections and so forth for the non-exclusive classifications. Just to, essentially gives you an idea of the numbers you're looking at. This information is also on the website, so if you want to.
Estimates. Remember, this is estimates. So the other thing too is this is distilled spirits only. Okay, if you're selling Coke, ice, Pepsi, mixers, those are all your related items. You're going to purchase them on your own. You're going to mark them up on your own. you're going to receive that, whatever your margin structure are. This is just for distilled spirits. Anything else you sell outside of distilled spirits is yours in terms of related items.
Back in.
Oh, yeah. So we're close to the end here. That'll be good, right? So a few of the benefits. We're paying for shipping to the retail locations. In the rural model, if we have to travel 70 miles down the road, drop off 8 cases and travel 70 up, we may not be interested because we have to be concerned about profitability for the state of Oregon. Everything we ship is through independent carriers, so we don't do any of the shipping. We actually get the liquor cases to the edge of the conveyor, and it loads in the truck on their own. So these are all common carriers across, or many of them Oregon companies as well. We're paying for credit card fees currently for anything that's distilled spirit sales. So the state pays for the bank card sale. We're about 70% utilization rate for bank cards. Everybody has a debit card, usually has about 8 or 10 bucks in their pocket, but everybody's swiping cards. It's about 70% utilization. We own the distilled spirits inventory. We'll establish an inventory forecast alongside of you. We're fairly generous in the beginning. So let's say you open a brand new store, $200,000 in inventory, state-owned inventory. We've now paid for it through the commission once it leaves the dock. And then if you need more, you work, generally district managers have full autonomy. As your sales go up, they'll adjust your increase in forecasted dollars so you have enough to remain in an in-stock position or maybe carry more variety because you found out that you didn't know that you had Scotch consumers and you want more selection because they're buying multiple bottles. But we do own the inventory. We floor it. We're not going to pay for your ice, the Coke. Those are all things that you're going to pay for on your own. Split case products, we have about 1,500 split case products. Typically those are new item innovation. Oftentimes you get new items and you don't want to try a whole case and tie up 300, 400, 500 in inventory dollars. So we offer 1, 2, 3, 6 bottle cases when you get something brand new and you want to make sure that it's going to work in your marketplace. A lot of our Oregon products are in here because they're slower moving. And so we have a lot that are only available, or a lot of them available through the repack system because we want to support those small distillers. Offers you the ability to carry a pretty wide selection of products. We have some stores in Portland with special orders and regular orders combined. Some are in the neighborhood of 2,200 to 2,400 items. Part of that is because they have a huge service to bar counts. So they have a back bar that's really diverse in terms of selection. Special orders, I mentioned that earlier about we have procured across the world. But generally speaking, if it's available, we can find it, and it's for a consumer, we'll try and find it. Uniform pricing, if I go to Pendleton, if I go to Newport, K Falls, or Bend, I'm paying the same bottle price, so it's uniform pricing across the state, which customers tend to enjoy. What can you do? Like I said, we'll stay around after if there's some specific questions you want to ask individually. Find a location. Think about, and by the way, I want to mention, we've mined some of the data and given you some things to work with. Estimates of population, maybe in certain areas. The Google machine is really good. There's a lot of data out there today that you can mine through the internet. You know, land use changes, traffic patterns, potential growth areas. A lot of this is out there. We're not going to do all the work. We put a lot of it together in here. I'll go back a couple steps, and it's on the web as well as product selection. We asked you in your business plan, you'll see the detail to think about product selection. We already have a master list of every single category that we've ranked that says here's the best selling items across Oregon. And then you can partner with us and or district managers who try and help develop your plan. We answer the phones. We're like Southwest Airlines. Generally, except for a lunch, we have a vacancy for one of the retail staff members. But when you call into our main line, we'll answer the phone. We answer email all throughout the day. Contact us, contact Graham. He's provided a cell phone number. He's crazy. But I know you may have some questions, but he's also very interested in a market that he supports, making sure that he's helping you as best he can. Your local government, and that's more, you know, churches, schools. There's some rules around that. Generally speaking, 500 feet from church or school. We still take youth very, 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 very seriously. We don't want access to minors in liquor stores. And then the business, if you do apply for an O license, once appointed, you'll contact, for this little area here, you'll contact Laura from the regional office. They'll help you. They're pretty darn helpful. I think that what you'll realize as you go through the business part of what we do, I think you'll find that commission staff, OLCC, very knowledgeable and very helpful. And you know, some people sometimes afraid to pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, call us, find out what your question is. Make sure it's legal. Make sure it's something you want to be doing, because we have a lot of experts that may be able to help develop your plans.
So let me jump in there, Brian. If you are looking at a model that includes the sale of beer and wine, and you don't currently have a license, an O license as we call it, which is off-premise sales, that license is available on the OLCC website. If you intend to go that direction, I encourage you to look at that license application, print it off, get it filled out, and start that process now. They can go parallel with each other. Your liquor contract effort and your O license effort can go parallel with each other, but they do take a little time. And you know, as you can probably imagine, our license load right now with marijuana is pretty heavy, so we're not going as fast as we'd like to with a liquor license or a beer and wine license. So if you need to do that, if you intend to do that, do it now.
So let me wrap this up for you and talk about what our business is. So the retail, wholesale, distribution, we're business people. You know, the three of us combined, you know, retail experience, about 100 years. Graham's got the majority of them, I think. But I'm well over 30 years, Brian, all of us. So we're really trying to operate a business in the best way we can. We have statutes, rules to abide by, but we believe in supporting businesses. This business venture, if you go within it, we'll probably finish up this biennium, which happens in a couple weeks. We run in 2-year cycles. Just north probably of $1.2 billion, $1.1 billion, $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion. Our forecasted revenues for 17-19 biennium look somewhere around $1.3 billion. We're going to finish up shipping for this 2-year cycle approximately 6.2 million cases out of our warehouses. We have 2 in a secondary warehouse primarily for replenishment to the main warehouse. So it's an exciting business. It's still retail. It's a customer. It's engaging. If you've got a frowny face and don't know how to support a customer, I don't know that you're going to be successful, because the customer wants to be engaged. They want information. They want knowledge. We just finished up some Scotch training this year with prominent figures, because we want liquor agents to have the tools to be successful, and we want them to learn category knowledge, because you know it's pretty simple to go into a store and get cornflakes, but when you're going in to spend $100 on something for Scotch or a whiskey or a fine bourbon, you might want to know a little bit more about it before you take a chance. So with that, I'll wrap it up. That's all I have, but I'm here to answer questions, and I'll start taking any at this given time. Yes, sir.
Is there an application fee?
No. For the retail contract, you're applying for a business plan, right, to be appointed. If you're appointed, the contract, it costs you nothing. If you have a license, an O license, I believe annually is $100. There is some other costs, so there's liability insurance, but that's generally, you know, not a ton of money. So yeah, great question, but there's no application fee. Anybody else? That was easy. So Graham's a resource, but the Portland office, the headquarters, is here to support you in your endeavors. Graham, I may come back over to the market if we need to do a follow-up, but people have enough questions or he's not able to get everything. We'll do that. We're committed to you know, expanding liquor stores in a moderate approach across Oregon, and really these are small Oregon businesses generally. We have a lot of stores that already have them, you know, smaller grocery stores, rural communities. Graham has the bulk of those stores. and really providing, you know, first-class service to Oregonians. I mean, we have one of the most diverse product portfolios in terms of states and what's available. And part of it is because we have scale. When you're a billion-dollar business, you can work with manufacturers to acquire, you know, goods that maybe other open markets don't get, because you only get 22 bottles. We had 10 bottles of what's called Pappy Van Winkle 25-year-old, right? And licensees, $1,800 a bottle. But you don't get that in some markets. Part of it's our scale, and they have, you know, a pretty good bourbon market customer in Oregon. Pretty sophisticated consumers.
So I generally speaking, I come to routine visits. I have 14 stores in the Central Oregon area, from Chemult to Madras and a couple of outlying areas. Generally speaking, I come to Central Oregon about every 8 weeks, and so my target right now is for a visit in July for probably about a week. But more importantly, I'm probably going to make, as Brian alluded to, certainly one and perhaps 2 more outreach trips between now and the 31st of July when the application period expires. So again, I encourage you to call me. We'll set something up if we want to go for a drive. If we want to sit down here at the Bend Regional Office over on the west side and look over your business plan. Whatever you choose to do, we are here. We're here as a resource, and I'll be happy to set aside the time to do any of those things with you. We've already done some running around town with potential candidates, talking on the phone with some of you, some of whom I know I've talked on the phone with, some of you I probably talked on the phone with and I don't know. But I'd be more than happy to do that for you. So we'll reach out and we'll set something up, and I'll just group a whole bunch of face-to-face, one-on-one meetings in a 3 or 4 day period.
Portland is open too if you come over. We have a lot of, you know, example stuff that we've had appointed over the years. If you want to look at, you know, how to, you know, not everybody's built a business plan yet. There's some great templates out there, but we have some, you know, examples. We redact a lot of the information, but we have some examples that may spur some ideas for you and how you may want to prep and prepare for your presentation.
And I'll also add to Graham's points, you know, once you get appointed and you're starting this new venture, we're not kicking you out of the nest for sure. There's a lot of follow-up. All of our department comes from a corporate retail background. We do follow-up visits. This last week, I was in a store, we talked about shrink control. Went to another store, we talked about HR best practices. Went to another store, and I worked with the manager who just got promoted, and he's having a hard time transitioning from being a peer to now he's their boss. So there's a lot of things that we can help with your business depending on what it is you're needing help with.
Yeah, and that's actually their job. and they are. They're good at their job, and that's what they're hired to do, is help and support these businesses. That's part of their job. Part of that, as Brian alluded to, we are new to the system. We have it's not thoroughly regimented, but we have a rather involved training program. I can tell you that it's pretty much minimum of 4 hours, and sometimes can go as much as a day. We don't kick you out of the nest knowing nothing. We want to, I mean, I can tell you that I do it selfishly. I want to make sure that you know everything that I know, so you make my job easier. Fair enough. Thanks for coming. Thank you.
Good questions?
So the application process runs until July 31st, but if for any reason shorten that time period?
No, that's a hard, fast date. One, I know there's leases potentially, and you want to try and work with letters of intent if it's something you're going down. But more importantly, giving everybody a little bit of time to put their arms around it. We gotta, at some point we have to, you know, we're not gonna, oh, we tricked you, it's July, or June 30, you know, we're 2-3 weeks away. No, we're gonna stay till the July 31st deadline. And that should give you almost 2 months to plan and prepare. And go from there.
I did have a question about, so if you do get approved with everything, and do you have to have a location locked down with your business plan?
It would be a good idea to have an area.
Well, I know, so I'm wondering, like, do you have time to build something? 'Cause
You
won't
could.
know
You
until
could have a
are-
build out. You could have a letter of intent. You don't sign any leases, okay?
That's what I
Because
was
you
wondering,
don't
how do you
know
go about that
yet.
with everything.
Yeah, but if you have an idea in mind, meeting with a landlord, potentially sewing up some, letters of intent, that's one. If you have a site and dirt and build out and space available, I think it's important to, talk with us.
Okay.
More importantly, because at East Bend Liquor, we're not putting one across the street. And we want to make sure that it makes sense.
Right.
Because we don't want you to start building something and expending revenues that you may not get appointed for.
Right, okay.
Good question. Spurred another one. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a defined distance from the existing liquor stores?
In Bend Market is probably, there's no set distances. I think what you got to really look at is, look at population. Okay, so there's 72,000 in this area, and there's 5 liquor stores. It's different than, 48,000 over here, one liquor store. Is it serving, what Bend's like today to get around and stuff? And again, we're here to try and help you. We're not going to give you the answers because, yep, that's the perfect spot. That won't hurt this one. This won't get that. I mean, we want you to truly develop this plan. That's what's been successful about this program is people have gone off and said, okay, here's East Bend, here's the North Bend, and I'm going all the way up Mount Bachelor, It's not a defined 2.2 miles in metro markets or even in the rural markets. It's really is what is potential impact on an existing liquor store.
And access by the way.
So Brian, do you want to talk about what they did and what the commissioners decided in Portland, for example, like the Shailene?
Yeah. So in the Portland metro market, we had a unique situation. We did have a need. This is Western Washington County. We had a corporate retailer that wanted a limited selection, probably 250, 300 SKUs, really to provide an additional convenience for their customer. And then directly across the street, they cited a brand new liquor location. This is from an existing liquor agent. And the corporate says, no, we're fine with that. And the individual selected, no, I'll appreciate the increased traffic as a result of all your big business you're doing in grocery sector. And actually, it was, both parties said, no, I'll be fine. So they did do that. I don't know that there'll be a lot of, siting across the street unless they're 2 brand new locations. We have an interest from other large corporate entities. Some have pulled away, but there is a lot of this model. Store-in-a-store model. We have them in Thriftways. We have them in Century Markets, or a lot of these places across Oregon. So anything is open for business, and we'll let the commissioners decide based on what you propose to the commission. And be real when you talk about estimates. I'm going to do $7 million in the first year. Maybe you won't, unless they close all the roads down except the one that leads to your store. Yes, Kathy.
Is there any information out there from what's been done so far that this is actually creating new business or just spreading out existing business when you're making your projections?
So we have some new. Remember, we're not even in a full year cycle yet. We know in certain areas of the Portland metro, it's grown organically in one smaller market where we added 1 store. There was an existing store 4 miles down the road, opposite sides of the freeway. Obviously, traffic patterns are important. But I think that'll be about $1.5 million plus. In your market, we grew a marketplace a little more when we added that new store. Salem market. We added a new store several years ago that wasn't under expansion model. Once we added it, everybody kind of upped their game and so forth. I think we grew that market overall by creating access, about $3.5 million. We don't have 12-year running totals estimates. There could be some cannibalization as you create, the person that's driving 6 miles across town now is only driving a mile down the road from their house. There will be some potential cannibalization, and we do understand that.
And customers do like to see something new and shiny. It's getting them to repeat their visit, and that's where making sure, you know, your customer service is stellar. And then the market's going to decide where they want to shop based on their experience.
To your question, more importantly, is we made a commitment in here is we're not going to put significant impact on liquor agents, right? I could tell you from my perspective, Steve Marks, our executive director, our board of commissioners, we realize there's going to be some, but we're not here to put people out of business that have already gotten us this far.
Are there limitations to operations of hours besides the 7 a.m.?
7 a.m., 10 p.m. And that's on the information sheet as well inside. Yeah, and there's some rural stores that open, you know, like a hardware store, 7, they're open, but the town shuts down at 6. And then there's others in Portland Metro where they open at 9, and there's several stores now that are open till 10 p.m. But they have the population. You can't do that everywhere in Oregon. So, thank you all so much for coming, and contact us should you have any other questions.
Jeffers.